Week 2 of Bimageddon is upon us. We just lost our favorite rookie running back. And week 9 is coming quick. Who are the guys we should scour off the waiver wire? We have that info next. Producer, hit the... Welcome back to the Fantasy Forecast with Grindberg and bigz waiver wire and week 8 recap show. I am bigz. He is Grindberg. We are in the building. This is your weekly breakdown of all things. This is your weekly breakdown of quite a few things. Fantasy football. How are you doing, Mike? You got your Blue Jays hat on. The Blue Jays are in the World Series. You're a Chiefs fan. The Chiefs are on Monday Night Football right now. Your head must be spinning
because it's a tight game, and I'm sure I will figure out this outcome in this important World Series game. As you're a diehard Dodger fan, and I'm obviously a Blue Jays fan, but our actual teams are the San Francisco, Giants. So we have that in common. But we have
what's awesome about it though is not caring.
Well, what we do care about is our viewers and how we've been performing for them over the last little while. We'll get into our studs and our dud calls. We had a couple bangers and a couple duds this week, so it'd be interesting to get into that. But let's talk about some news, bigz. It's week 9. Some trauma, some big storylines. Let's talk about our first one here, and that's the rise of Oronde, Gadsden, and obviously the fall of Quentin Johnston. Just a few weeks ago, fantasy managers were still waiting for Quentin Johnston to finally take the next step. He did, but now what happened? We got Oronde Gadsden. He's now stolen the spotlight. The 5th round pick has caught fire, putting up 5 catches for 77 yards this week and a touchdown in week 8, capping off a 309 2-touchdown stretch over the last 3 games. The production puts him alongside guys like Mike Ditka, Brock Bowers, and rare rookie company. Gadsden becomes a legitimate weapon for Justin Herbert. Meanwhile, Johnston's role has completely vanished. Despite running 20 routes in week 8, he saw 0 targets, his first time that it's ever happened in his career over his last 3 games. He's averaged just 3.5 targets per game, while Ladd McConkey and Gadsden have dominated the short to intermediate work. The result, Johnston's fantasy relevance is hanging by a thread. Now, bigz, the passing game has completely flipped. Gadsden's breakout star. McConkey's getting volume. Johnston is fading fast. But do you think this production eventually levels off, or all 3 end up eating into each other's work? Or has Gadsden really carved out a stable fantasy role that makes him a weekly starter going forward?
Well, I think based on the talent level of Gadsden and the ability to get open of Ladd McConkey, you can safely say that those guys aren't going anywhere. The thing with Quentin Johnston is he's always been a deep threat. So we tried to project an everyday role for him in the offseason. And based on what he did last year, that's absolutely a possibility. You know how I feel about So I don't know what you're doing while you're doing all that. You know how I feel about loaded wide receiver rooms. Sometimes there's not 3 or 4 guys that you can count on. The Chargers are one of those receiving rooms. But Ladd McConkey and Oronde Gadsden in the short game operate a lot like, say, Romeo Doubs and Tucker Kraft. We know what we're getting out of them. Last year, we had Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers. Everybody else was kind of ancillary. That puts Quentin Johnston in like an Alec Pierce type role. We know that he's good deep downfield, and he had a good average up of target last year. He also, because of injuries and trades and everything, had to work a little bit more on the crossing routes in the middle of the field. That's not necessary anymore. So with the breakout of Oronde Gadsden, we lose a little bit from Quentin Johnston. The best ball spikes are still going to be there. But this week kind of, it was hard to look at some of my lineups and see that big 0 there and not be worried going forward. But play matchups with this guy.
I mean, I agree. I mean, I think I had him in 5 lineups this week, and that is a hard pill to swallow headed into the weekend when you got 5 lineups with 0
Except that one of the funnest things in fantasy is to take a goose egg from a player and still win the week.
And it's great because all those teams that I had him on still winning because I also had Oronde Gadsden in that, and most of those teams as well. So they kind of offset each other.
I went up against a team that had Oronde Gadsden, and Kamani Vidal and Justin Herbert, and I still won.
There you go. Yeah, there's still a chip in a chair is what they say, bigz. And let's move on to our next storyline, and that is the Jets finally taking flight. Is Breece Hall back after weeks of offensive misery and public criticism from ownership? The New York Jets finally showed signs of life in their shocking 39-38 win over the Bengals. It was Breece Hall leading the charge. I called it on the forecast last week. The star back erupted. 133 yards on the ground, 2 rushing touchdowns. He even tossed a touchdown to Mason Taylor, your start of the week there, bigz. I think we piggybacked off each other, and it was great to see both these guys topped 100. Breece Hall topped 100 yards. Both of them got touchdowns, and Breece has got 100 yards in 4 of the last 5 games. His performance hit a new level, back in the saddle, in my opinion here. But the real fantasy question is sustainability. Can Fields control the low turnover play, keep this offense balanced enough to unlock Breece Hall consistently? bigz, after that huge performance, where are you at with Breece Hall's fantasy outlook right now? Is he officially back in that elite RB1 conversation the rest of the season, or do you still have concerns, or do you have any concerns about his week-to-week stability in this offense?
The only concerns I have are, A, is Justin Fields going to stay healthy? And B, what he did, who did he do it against? The Cincinnati Bengals. Mm-hmm. They're not exactly, an iron curtain of defense. So give it another week. I mean, play him by all means. I still have not benched Breece Hall at all this season, but we know the talent level. He just needs the opportunity. He needs the touches, and he's good, and he showed it. So yeah, stick with him.
I think you pegged it really good on our last show, the last waiver wire show. We were talking about the Justin Fields situation, and you calmed us down, even though all week it was the signs were pointing to Tyrod Taylor, but you were like, no, I think Justin Fields is going to get this. Obviously, Taylor was a bit banged up, but have faith. It's going to be matchup dependent with Fields, and obviously Breece Hall now at this stage here too. When it's a juicy matchup like the Bengals, you're going to have some fantasy relevance with these guys. But when they get into some stout pass rushes where Fields is under pressure and he's going to have to make those plays, and he's not very good in those situations, like we know, and Schulte has pointed that out many times on our show. He's kind of like a boomer bust kind of guy, and you just got to play the matchups. And I think Breece Hall falls into that category now too, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, let's get on to Chase Brown, and he's breaking out, or is it a mirage, bigz? I mean, the Bengals offense finally showed signs of life. Week 7, week 8 now, and Chase Brown was right at the center of it. The second year back ripped through the Jets defense for multiple chunk plays, capped off by a goal line touchdown that highlighted his explosiveness and trust within the offense. He looked like the most dynamic piece in that backfield rotation, flashing burst, contact balance, and they've been missing that ground game all season, and now Flacco somehow showing what he can do. Love what I see in that offense now. Chase Brown finally looking like the guy people drafted him to be. Explosive, efficient, and getting that valuable goal line work, bigz. After this performance, do you think Brown's back into the reliable RB2 mix with legitimate, low-end RB1 upside rest of season, or are you still skeptical about the Bengals offense can sustain it week to week?
And again, it's another week to week kind of thing. they were going up against the Jets defense that, is kind of middle of the pack against running backs and allowing fantasy points. I feel like game script is going to be the big thing with Chase Brown. If Joe Flacco can get them a lead quick, then they're going to rely on Chase Brown a lot. The biggest surprise for me was Samaje Perine. I saw a couple people like taking dips on the waiver wire throughout the week, and then all of a sudden, every time I look up, he was like running off a chunk play, and I was like, I know who Samaje Perine is, but where did this guy come from?
Yeah, I mean, just a guy that, a little bit of a veteran back that, gets that opportunity, and when he shows, he could catch passes too out of the backfield, and sometimes when you don't think he's going to be in there for a run play, he could gash off like a 20 to 30 yarder like he did last game. So yeah, like what you saw there, Biggs. And then this next piece here is quite a remarkable. Jonathan Taylor is on an MVP rampage. He is the top fantasy RB, and he doesn't look like he's going to give that up anytime soon. The takeover is begun since that injury. Now the star back demolished the Titans in Week 8, torching them for 153 yards and 3 touchdowns, including that 80-yard lightning strike on very minimal touches. I think he had like 12 carries or something like that. It was incredible to see his efficiency. Taylor's burst, balance, and long speed looked vintage, even better than his 2021 form, as he hit over 21 miles per hour on his longest run in 5 years. The Lucas Oil crowd responded with MVP chants, and honestly, they weren't wrong. His career 63 rushing scores in just 75 games. Now the traits of Edgerrin James with most in Colts history. This is impressive stuff. He's playing at a historical level, explosive, efficient, and clearly the centerpiece of that high-scoring Colts offense. That offensive line is making holes bigger than I've ever seen, and now you're locking him in as I'm locking him in as the uncontested RB1 in all formats at this stage based off of that offensive line and what they're doing there in Indianapolis. And it's time for fantasy managers to start building around him for the rest of the season. Biggs, what's your thoughts on Jonathan Taylor here?
I want you to clip this because this Tennessee defense is a defense that gave up one of Ashton Genty's better games of the season against a really, really bad Raiders team. The Colts are really good. The Raiders are really bad. Now, to be fair, Ashton Genty only had 1 touchdown in that game, but he did have 23 carries. He had one of his better days. Pittsburgh is going to be kind of, they're going to contain him a little bit more. Then he's got Atlanta, which should be a good matchup, and a bye. So week 12, 13, 14, and 15, he's got Kansas City, Houston, Jacksonville, Seattle, and then in week 17, fantasy championship, he's got Jacksonville again. So clip this because we might see some troubled waters for Jonathan Taylor. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, and I'm not saying his dip is going to be, into the single-digit fantasy points in those weeks, but it's probably not going to be in the 25 to 35 point range again.
Yeah, I mean, like Seattle is the number one run defense against yards right now. You mentioned a couple other teams like Kansas City, who's very stout against run. Jacksonville's very good. Yeah, like these are really tough defenses. Houston, another one. Yeah, man. They like. I mean, you never know. That offensive line is playing elite, but they may not be getting to the upper echelon that we've been seeing all year long, and that pace may not be as sustainable, where a guy like Bijan or McCaffrey, just based off of their matchups moving on, might end up in that range now. So yeah, temper your expectations on his matchups moving forward.
Right. And I was going to bring up both of those guys and Jahmyr Gibbs. So you have Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, and Jahmyr Gibbs, who are all out there as well. So as to be able to say that you could count on Jonathan Taylor to hit RB1 status every week moving forward, I don't think that's necessarily the case. And when we talk rest of season, we have to throw out what's already happened and just look at what's coming. And there are a handful of guys who are playing at that level. Jonathan Taylor absolutely is one of them, but he's among others.
Yeah. I love it. All right, let's move on to our studs and duds of the week here, bigz, where we take accountability. We take ownership over how we directed our viewers this last week on our starts and sits. And last week I started. You want to start us off this week with your starts and sits, bud?
I'll go ahead since I'm wearing my winning hat.
Mm-hmm.
So this week I said to sit Tony Pollard, and guess what Tony Pollard did? If you had him in your lineup, which is against my advice, he only got you 6.3 points from the running back position. No bueno. That's Spanish for not good. I also said to I also said to start Mason Taylor. He had 14.4 points, wound up as tight end 6. At the end of one of the segments, one of the shows last week, I mentioned Justin Fields and how he had done against bad defenses, and he wound up with 21 points, good for QB 11. So in the super flex, especially, he certainly helped. In redraft, he did not hurt you. And I said to start Tyjae Spears, and he came out with 17 points, which was pretty good. Now, for the L's, I said to start Alec Aomanor. He had 9.2 points. You don't want to see single digits. He didn't kill you, especially if you were starting him in a flex spot, but he certainly didn't lead to a win. You may not have lost with his 9 points, but it certainly didn't push you over the top for a W. And I also said to sit George Pickens. Process was good, and George Pickens was held to 14.8 points, but that's still 14.8 points. And the baseline that you want to see for a flex spot is about 15 points. So I missed a little bit on George Pickens. However, just to kind of hedge a little bit, his target share is still not where it was. He did have 9 targets and 7 catches, and his finish was not in the top 15 going into Monday Night Football. So, I mean, it wasn't a terrible call, but he played better than I expected him to. They looked for him more than I thought they would.
Yeah, me as well. I mean, I had one bad whiff here this week, and I'm going to take a huge L on telling people to sit Jalen Waddle this week against the Atlanta Falcons. But I mean, Falcons, pass defense has been elite this year, and Tua has not played well. So this was an anomaly game, and I'll take the L on that one. Absolutely. If you sat Jalen Waddle on my behalf, that's an L for sure. I got a wash with Cortland Sutton. He still got over 10 fantasy points, but it wasn't the elite status that, a Troy Franklin ended up getting in that game. I just ended up getting the wrong guy. So that's a wash. I'm 1-0, 1-1 at this stage, but then we get into my hits this weekend. I told everybody to sit Jaylen Warren against the Green Bay Packers defense. He only got 60 yards on the ground and I think 1 catch through the air. That's a huge sit after a breakout game he had the week before. And my start of the week here was telling everybody to start Breece Hall, and he was RB2 overall behind only Jonathan Taylor this week. Threw for a touchdown, ran for 2, and was the centerpiece of that Jets offense. And I took a lot of start and sit calls on my Twitter feed this week and had a lot of Breece Hall on it. And I'm glad that I was sticking to my guns when people were challenging me. And then I got a lot of good praise in the morning after the Breece Hall call. So yeah, Breece Hall, one of my best calls of the year.
I forgot one of my other calls on Breakfast with Big. Somebody asked me about starting tight ends, and I said start Goddard, and he had 2 touchdowns.
There you go.
I think that was Dad Bod.
I think we're about 75% again here, Biggs, when you think about how strong our starts were. And unfortunately,
I'm better than 75% this week because I cheated and I put in more. I added the Justin Fields. I added the Dallas Goedert. So that
We're on fire here, bigz, and we're continuing our streak. And this week we got another couple bangers. So let's continue on with our waiver wire pickups, and let's start with yourself here, man. Let's get into your quarterback tight end spot.
Okay, I'm going to cheat again, and I'm going to throw a bunch of names out here because I don't like rules, and so I'm going to do more than one. First one, though, the priority ad is J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy is 75% available. He's been sitting for the last couple of weeks. Carson Wentz has been playing. McCarthy has been sitting and injured for the last couple of weeks. Carson Wentz has been playing, and the bye is behind them. So if you need a quarterback, if you have a quarterback on bye in week 9, or week 10 or week 11, or like Jackson Dart in week 14, go ahead and grab JJ McCarthy because he doesn't have a bye ahead of him. I'm going to say, go get Mason Taylor. He's still only 80%, or he's still available in 80% of leagues. And I've been trying to tell you over and over again to get this kid. He finally shows out, catches that pass from Breece Hall. If they're involving him in trick plays, then they're going to be involving him in normal plays too. Mason Taylor available too much in ESPN leagues, and his top 12 tight end performance. I've been trying to say he's legit. And then also Cade Otton. Cade Otton is owned in 50% of leagues. He does have a bye this week. So does Mason Taylor. Both of them are on bye. So they're not going to help you in week 9, but they definitely will help you moving forward. Cade Otton is one of those guys where his floor is in the 6 to 8 points, but he can grab that touchdown every once in a while. Mike Evans isn't coming back. Abuka is kind of up and down at this point. Abuka had a great start to the season, but the analytics are not great. His yards after the catch is pretty good, but his ability to get open is starting to be questioned. He's gone a couple weeks with like fairly bad performances. If he's not catching the ball, and Sterling Shepard, grab Cade Otton just in case.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, yes, Abuka has not been where he was, but he did suffer that hamstring injury that people were surprised that he even played in that week. So they have a much needed bye here, and I think that whole team's going to get a lot more healthy. Bucky Irving, we should see back. We should see Abuka back to a little bit more of a full strength. And then Godwin's going to take some of that pressure off of him too, which we should see him healthy as well. So I think that's going to take some coverage off of Abuka. So I'm still really optimistic about his rest of season if he can get healthy after this bye, but we'll have to keep an eye on him because you are right. His metrics did go down over the last little while. And a guy that I'm going to tell everybody to pick up on the waiver wire because so many people dropped him after his week 7 performance because, we talked about it earlier on the show. Tyrone Taylor was destined to, start this week until that injury happened and held him out. But look at Justin Fields, his redemption tour with the Jets. He could be emerging here. He's been through a lot, emotional gauntlet. But week 8 might have been his most defining moment yet, just days after being publicly criticized by the owner, Woody Johnson, and temporarily benched in favor of Tyrone Taylor. Fields returned to the starting lineup and led New York to a heart-stopping 39-38 win over the Bengals. We talked about it already in the show. He did survive the adversity. He thrived in it. Now he looked okay here in a clean pocket, 18 for 26, 217 yards, 11 first downs, and 65% PFF grade, not too bad. Explosive completions, no sacks allowed, and he did have some dual threat production. He didn't bust a big run that we're used to, but he still got 31 yards on the ground, showing that he is that dual threat capable. And in a game where he wasn't essentially a huge target in this, and he didn't need to run a whole lot in it. I just think the path is there for him to continue to thrive in a matchup dependent situation. So, if he's on the waiver wire, pick him up because you can start him pretty good and pretty confidently in the right matchup here.
Right. And think about this. Breece Hall had a passing touchdown. What if that's a play action bootleg for Justin Fields and he hits Mason Taylor there instead of handing the ball off to Breece Hall. Because if they go into that formation again, tape's going to be on that play. Their defenses are going to shut it down. Justin Fields could have had, I said he had 20-something points and he was quarterback 11 for the week. If he gets that touchdown instead of Breece Hall, suddenly he's in 27-point territory, and that's just good.
That is just good. I love it. All right, bigz. Let's get into your wide receiver pickup of the week here.
Okay, so I'm going to cheat again because I like to do that. And I'm going to go with two guys. And these are guys that we absolutely love. And we love them coming into the rookie drafts. And that's Jalen Knoll and Jaden Higgins of the Houston Texans. We saw in this last game, Jaden Higgins starting to get boosted up. He's available in 78% of ESPN leagues, and he's starting to add his target share. So we know that especially wide receivers taken in the second, third day, they start to break out in the second half. We're in the second half. We're in the second half of the season. Jalen Knoll, also a rookie wide receiver. Breakouts happen in the second half with second and third day guys. Typically, when you go out and you get a Tyrone McMillan and you spend draft capital on a Matthew Golden, you know that those guys are going to be targeted pretty quickly. It takes guys a little while. Think back to Jalen McMillan last year. That is the Jaden Higgins, Jalen Knoll of this year. That's the blueprint. These guys are going to start coming on really strong. We already see with Jalen Knoll's efficiency, his per catch metrics are really, really good. They're close to elite level. And Jaden Higgins is starting to add up the target share that's going to make him productive. So they don't have a bye coming up. They should be on the waiver wire. Jalen Knoll is 87% available, and he's efficient. Jaden Higgins is 78% available, and he gets targets. So go grab those two guys, and that's it.
I love it, man. Great analysis. I'm right on the bandwagon with you here. I love it. I love it. Jaden and Jalen. All right, my pickup of the week actually is Troy Franklin, and if you are listening to this show, you already know about Troy Franklin and how legit he is, because this is the second time we've highlighted him this year alone on a waiver wire show. After a quiet stretch from weeks 3 to 7, he exploded in week 8, hauling in 6 of 8 targets, 89 yards, 2 touchdowns. For me, what was more impressive was how much he looked comfortable, how much he commanded that offense when he was in it, and that route of